Okay, in the next game, I'm also black because I'm black in every game. This game is more interesting. That game you might have been like, eh. And you could put a marker for game 2 if you'd like to. Somebody put a marker for game 1. That was nice of them. And this game I've shown several times in videos, so you may have seen it. This was also played in 1993. And this is from another chess family, the Arganian family. The player I'm playing here is an expert, but he later became a master. And his dad was an A player or B player, depending on what year it was. I don't think his dad ever got to expert. I don't think so. His dad was usually in the 1700s or 1800s. And this guy, Dave Arganian, his dad's also Dave Arganian. He's Dave G. Arganian. It's a little different. They're from Lansing. So I played them a few. I don't think I played the dad, but I played them in Michigan. Might have played the dad. I don't know. Huh. Interesting. Okay. So another Sicilian. And my opponent played the open Sicilian, d4. And in my chess career, if you can call it a career, I've played knight f6 and g6. And basically it depended like what year it was. Some years I just played g6. Some years I played just knight f6. And then some I played both. In 93, I was probably after my g6 phase. I was playing knight f6 and d6. The classical Sicilian. The two most common moves at the grandmaster level are bishop c4, which is the Sozin. I can't say Sozin. Why do I say Sozin? What's wrong with me? Or bishop g5, which is the Richter-Rauser. And then at the lower levels, other moves are played, but they're less common at the top levels. Okay, my opponent played bishop g5, the Richter-Rauser. And I've had this position in slow tournaments probably more than 40 times. And I used to play bishop e7, which you'll see. And currently I play a6. And those are the only two moves I've played. Those are the two most common moves. This is my bishop e7 phase, 1993. He castled, and I castled. And in this position, almost every game I've played in this position, before and after this game, my opponent played the move f4. That's what I faced the most. And that's probably the most common move. And another move that's quite common, which I've only faced in this game, I've never faced it otherwise, is knight b3. And in the early 90s, there was a match between Karpov and Short. It was the FIDE. It was the final match before the World Championship. So the winner of the match would play Kasparov for the World Championship. That happened to be Short. And Short lost to Kasparov in their World Championship match, which FIDE eventually didn't recognize, and they played their own match. But that's another story. And this was the final game of the Short-Karpov match. Short was up by 1 point, and Karpov needed to win with black. Karpov, not normally playing open Sicilian with black, but he was forced to win. And Nigel played knight b3, like my opponent did, and Nigel won a very nice game. And it was the last game of the match. Nigel won the match, and so forth. And that was played between 91 and 94, if I remember correctly. I'm not saying I remember correctly, but if I do, somewhere in there, somewhere around this game. Okay, now the point of knight b3 is to get out the way, move. You're getting out of the way of the queen and rook. So what white wants to do is white wants to play bishop takes f6. And if you take with the bishop, then the d pawn is hanging. In the game, Short-Karpov, that I referenced a few minutes ago, Karpov played a6, which is one of the main moves. Bishop takes f6. The pawn sacrifice is considered unsound. So Karpov played GF. And this is an interesting position. It's double-edged. Black has 2 bishops. Black has more center pawns. Opposite side castling. A pretty good variation if you need to win with black. But it's not Karpov's kind of position. It's Nigel's kind of position. Nigel having white here, that's very Nigel-esque. Karpov having black here, that's just not who he is. He doesn't play black in these positions. So he ended up getting outplayed and he lost. In my opinion, more accurate than a6, so you don't have to play GF, is queen b6. And the point of queen b6 is to attack the f pawn. And when white does something about it, then we play rook to d8. So for example, if white tries to win a pawn, bishop f6, queen d6, he doesn't win a pawn because f2 is hanging. And while white is doing something about that, we have time to play rook d8 and defend our pawn, so we're not forced to play g takes f6. Okay, my opponent played f3, and I played rook to d8. And probably in 1993, I knew a little bit more theory than this, but I mean, now I don't know anything. I don't play bishop e7 anymore. I haven't studied this line in 25 years. I could get to here still, but then if somebody played the main move, I wouldn't even know. Okay, now my opponent played badly. He played what I call low-rated player moves. These are moves that are attractive to low-rated players. So if you're a low-rated player, you like to attack things. If you're a high-rated player, you like to improve your pieces. So my opponent was low-rated than me, so he liked to attack things. So king b1 is a normal kind of move. Probably h4 is. And my opponent played bishop e3, which attacks my queen. And then he did it again. He played knight b5, which doesn't make any sense. It attacks my queen, but you don't want your knight on b5. And I moved my queen. And now this pressure that he had over here is gone. His knight's off of c3. It's on this terrible square, letting me gain tempi. And this is just good for black. So black's already better. Okay, he played queen f2. And I played d5 because his knight's not on c3, so I can play d5. Hooray! I already have a threat. He took. I took with the knight. And he played bishop c5. And this position, black already has a big advantage. Engine says black's winning. Bishop g5 check, which is correct. And king b1. And now, I played a move which isn't the best, but it's fine. The best move is b6, kicking his bishop out, and then my bishop can get developed somewhere. But I played a6, which is okay. Still gives me a crushing position. And he can't play knight c3 because I take the knight with check and his rook is hanging. So he plays c4, which is the engine move. Engine agrees. I took. He took. I took. And he took. Okay. So far, I've played great. And my USCF rating at this point in time is like 2643. I was number 11 or so in the country by USCF rating. And here I played very speculative pawn sacrifice, which the engine agrees with is good for black, but it prefers just playing the simple bishop f5 check. Now, obviously, I have an attack on his king, a long-term attack, and he doesn't have an attack on my king. He's got nothing near my king. My king's incredibly safe. His king, I have this open A file. I have an open diagonal to his king, and my king is just safe. So I have like a free attack. Okay. I played d4, which the engine says is fine. and I'm sacrificing a pawn so I can open up more lines to his king. He took, which is fine. I took, he took, and I played bishop to e6, threatening his a2 pawn. And I remember thinking for many years, should he play a3 or b3? And what's funny is, like, I haven't looked this with an engine for a long time. Engines are better now than 20 years ago. And this engine, Stockfish 15, wants to play a4, which I didn't think of. But it really likes black's position, because even though I'm down a pawn, I just have an attack on his king, and my king is perfectly safe. So it really likes black's position. Okay, he played b3, and here I went totally insane. So in this position, I thought a few moves ahead, and my thinking was queen f4, and the engine says queen f4 is fine. g3 attacking my queen, and it says that's fine. Now I have to go to d6 or c7, and I have a big advantage. According to the engine, queen d6 is plus 2 for black. You know, my queen can go to a3, so forth. Instead, I played queen f5 check, which was my intention when I played queen f4. I said, okay, he'll play g3, I'll play queen f5 check, he'll play bishop to d3, and I'll play queen a5 with my queen and rook lined up on the a file, and probably threatening bishop takes b3. And I remember I played queen a5, my hand was still on my queen, and then I was like, oh, so I put my queen back on f5. And I said, well, I can't play queen a5. So my other option is to play queen h3, which is, what the hell's my queen doing on h3? So I calculated a little bit, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm playing queen a5 and sacking all my pieces. So it was a very fortuitous circumstance for me that this is the most interesting game ever, because I didn't see bishop b6. I saw bishop b6 when I was already playing queen a5, and then I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to allow bishop b6. Now, here's what's funny. If he doesn't play bishop b6, if he plays any other move, the engine says I'm completely winning. And I didn't see bishop b6 when I played queen f4 and when I played queen f5. I was thinking about how I'm attacking, and look at me, I'm Sandra Oh. And okay, so he played bishop b6, and the engine says white is slightly better. Slightly. Okay, so queen a3, he took my rook, engine agrees, and then I don't take his bishop back, I play bishop b3. So now I'm down a full rook, but I have a very aggressive position. The engine says he should play queen to b2. I take this with check. He has to play king to a1. If he plays king c2, this is actually forced checkmate. You can see my bishops, or, you know. One of my bishops is so good it moves like a knight. So he has to play king a1, which looks very scary. And now the engine says I should take this queen and then take this bishop, and it says white's slightly better. White's up in exchange for a pawn. He can't play rook here because I have bishop f6 check. So probably this is a draw. Probably. Okay, my opponent played the more obvious move, bishop takes g5. And now he's up a rook and a bishop, which is a lot. This isn't a 1 minute game. This is a serious game. Okay, and the engine says this should be a draw now. I checked. And he has to play king c2. And this position, I've lectured on many times, just this position here. Black only has one move here, otherwise white's winning. And you have to understand not only what you want to do, you have to understand what your opponent wants to do. And what white wants to do is saunter his king over to g2, because it's lost his efficacy over here. The king has to run away. So if I blindly check the king, I'm checking him into safety. I want his king to be on the queen's side for the rest of the game. I can't afford to have his king running away. I don't have enough firepower. I don't have a dark squared bishop. So I can't stop this unless I stop it. And after this move, the engine says it's equal. Okay, so I played queen b4, which a couple people suggested in the chat. And now the engine says this is a draw with correct play. It says rook b1 is a draw and bishop e4 is a draw. Otherwise, it says I'm doing well. It says that black is much better unless white plays one of these moves. So this is pretty clearly a draw if we go into the main line, which is takes, takes, check, king d1, takes, takes, takes here. This is just completely drawn. I have to take this so I'm not worse. I think if I save my b pawn and he saves his h pawn, I'll probably lose my b pawn eventually and be worse. But if I just take this, this is just a dead draw. That's the engine line if he plays rook b1. Okay, he played bishop e4, which is the other engine move, also good. Okay, I played bishop b3 check, the only move. Now he made a mistake. And the correct move isn't a move a lot of you would play. A lot of you would play what my opponent did. The correct move is to follow my rule no matter how insane it is. There's only one way to follow my rule here. Always play king b1. Walking into the discovered check. That's the only move that equalizes. Now I can draw by doing this, which obviously I'm not going to do. Bishop d5 check also draws. It's the same perp. And I can also play this position. Bishop c2 double check. King takes. Rook a2 check. King d3. Rook takes f2. And now I've won his queen, but he has a rook and two bishops for my queen. And after rook d2, the engine says this is a draw because I should perpetual check him. If somehow his king gets to safety, he just has a rook and two bishops for a queen. And it says I have like 50 perpetuals here. Everything's a perpetual. But I can't win. Now, he didn't play king b1 because, first of all, king b1 looks crazy. Second of all, some people, possibly him, would say king b1, black has a draw, I'm up a rook and a bishop, so I don't want to draw. Reasonable. So he played king d3 instead. I thought he did. Let's see. Okay, king d3. It's Raj. Go Raj. Okay. So now black's actually better. Bishop c4 check. Now here's what's funny. The engine wants to play king d4, and I'm not kidding. And it says I win his queen. Check in here. And it says black is slightly better, or it's equal. I guess rook d8 check is equal. I can't win his bishop on d8, so then the game would end in a draw. Yeah, this is a perpetual again. Incredible. King d4 is the best move. Nobody would play king d4 and like have their queen skewered. So he played king e3. Queen c5 check. Now, he can't move his king because then I save my bishop. In the other variation where he played king d4, he took my bishop. So now he's losing material-wise. So he has to play rook d4. I take with check. He has one legal move. f4. I put him in check. And in this position, he can play rook d3 or bishop d3. It turns out it's the same. He can't play king d2 because the engine announces mate here. It's pretty reasonable that white's getting mated here. I'm attacking with my queen, rook, and bishop. So he played rook to d3, and I take, check. I skewer his king and queen. If he plays king e2, I take this with check. So he has to play king f3. I skewer him again, and then we trade queens. I take his rook, and I'm a pawn up in the endgame. Many years after this game, I saw him at a tournament in Vegas, and he said, "This was very disappointing. I should draw this endgame." And I said, "I don't think it's a draw. I think I should win. I have an extra pass b pawn." And the engine says I'm +1. So probably we would need, Magnus to opine on whether he thinks black should win or it should be a draw. I still think black should win. I have an extra pass b pawn. And in case things get dicey, I have the correct colored rook pawn for my bishop. Okay, and he tried to get in with his king, but I stopped him by putting my pawns on black squares. So his king can't come in, and my bishop stops the white square. And he made a terrible blunder in this position. Or not this position, he traded. Yeah. Now the engine says I'm up 1.45, so probably winning. But here he made a very bad blunder. Obviously exhausted from calculating earlier, played bishop c4 check, letting my king walk in. I just win another pawn now. So that didn't make any sense. And now I have passed pawns on both sides of the board, so it's a very easy win. And he resigned here, I think. Yeah. Because I'm going to play h3, h2, bishop c6, QED. And so forth. His rating was like 2140, something like that. A better computer would be good. I want 50 cores, damn it. I'm guessing that endgame is winning. This endgame is winning. God damn. Anyway, that's one of my favorite games because I sort of accidentally sacrificed all my pieces, and the engine never said I was losing, which is weird. Usually when you blunder all your pieces, the engine says, man, you suck. But the engine said I barely suck because I was better back then. I was so good in the 90s that I could hang all of my pieces, and the engine said, okay, draw. Now I don't hang any pieces and I lose. Terrible.